ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. Now, first of all, let me convey my best wishes to each one of us on the great occasion of Dasera, which signifies victory of good over evil. That evil forces are contained, they are destroyed, and the good forces prevail. This is what we all want, and this is what we should work for also. Each one of us can contribute in our own way for destruction of evil and victory of good. So now, since we are in a holy month, starting with Navaratra, then Dashera, and then Deepavali, this period is extremely significant in Hindu scriptures as also in Hindu families all over the country. And therefore, I thought we should talk about rituals. Are they important? Why do we observe them? What is their purpose? Because some people feel that spirituality is more important rather than rituals. Now, spirituality is basically to understand the unknown, the insensible, the unintelligible, which is behind this whole universe. So, to understand that invisible force is spiritual pursuit. But then, since we are in a form, it is not easy for us to pursue things which are invisible, which are not in form. And therefore, we provide a form and a manifestation to some of those things through rituals. So rituals are in a way is a manifestation or is, you know, giving a physical shape to some of our ideas, thoughts, cultural concepts, and historical truths. And therefore rituals become extremely important for any civilization. The civilization survives because of these rituals. Because at young age or in childhood, the children cannot grasp spirituality. They have to be taught in a manner which is understood by them. And rituals provide the best way to make the new generation understand about our history, our culture, our traditions, and our beliefs. And therefore, rituals become extremely important, particularly in Hinduism, rituals are extremely important. But in other religions as well, rituals are followed and they are important. But in our religion, in Hinduism, these rituals are highly scientific. Now, let me give you an example why we follow the rituals. When a young child at the age of 3 years or 2.5 years starts learning kekhe gege a I e e, then we teach him a anar ka, a aam ka, ke kabutar ka, khe khargos ka, that way. And then slowly he picks up those words and starts pronouncing them. Similarly, the rituals provide that anar and aam and kabutar and khargos to make the younger generation understand what it is. For example, today we are celebrating the Sahara. Now there is an image of Ravana which is burned down and destroyed. Now the young children will understand that the evil forces are destroyed by the good forces. And then they will try to inquire more about that subject. And then they will go into Ramayana, the history of Rama, who was Rama and what was his role. All that will come into play. So these rituals create what we call an atmosphere, a curiosity that what is this? They also provide, a process in which we think, what is this? So rituals are extremely important. When we celebrate Diwali, then children ask, why are we celebrating? Because Rama returned back to Ayodhya on that particular day after destruction of the evil forces. And that is why the people welcomed him and we celebrate Diwali to celebrate that occasion. So these are some of the festivity related, rituals. It could be Mahashivratri, it could be Holi, it could be Diwali, Dashera, Navratra. All these are festivity related rituals. These rituals are rooted deeply in our culture, in our festivities. But then there are many other rituals. Rituals are associated with birth, when a new child is born, or even before the child is born. There are certain religious rituals which are performed, and soon after the childbirth, the Namkaran Sanskar happens, his Kundli is prepared. All this is part of the civilizational values of India. And these are not only the civilizational values, they are also based on a science, which we will discuss little later. Then, if we talk about marriage, this is also a ritual. Marriage is one festivity which is within human control. We presume that this is within human control, not necessarily what we presume, because the birth is not under our control. The death is neither. The birth happens, we are sent into this world. We don't know why and how and when. Who are your parents? Which country? What language? What culture? All that is given to you with your birth. And then death, you don't know when it comes, how it comes, when it, all of a sudden it happens. And we leave this world. In terms of marriage, there are certain rituals which we perform. There are practically 7, 8 days rituals in India, starting with what we call Ganesh Sthapna of Ganeshji, and then continuing with that process. And we presume that these rituals will make our life happy. They will provide us good progeny. Those progeny will actually help the parents in navigating their life in their old age. And then, the life continues with those hopes and assurances. So these rituals are built into our daily life in variety of ways. There's another very significant ritual which is built into Hinduism. Like I remember now, I don't know the things have changed, but I remember most people in the morning, they would get up, they will clean their body from inside and outside. That is, they will dispose of the, whatever waste is collected in the body. Then they will take a good bath, change their clothes, and they become what we call pavitra. They become some sort of purity comes into their day. Then they start the day with the prayer of the Supreme. and then they take their breakfast, and the work continues. Now that is also a ritual, or we can call it daily routine, which is built into our life, which gives a sanctity to our daily routine, which provides a good beginning to our day. Now, a lot of people, without disposing of the waste and doing anything, they start eating and then they start watching TV and this and that. Now, though their routine is very different, you see. When you start a routine with a proper thought, with a thought which is pure, with a thought which will lead you to purity in the day, it's very different. So these thoughts were very common in India. When I was born in a small village, we had these things rooted in our culture. That in the morning you will not eat anything unless you have performed your ritual of cleaning inside and outside of your body, and you have done a few minutes of prayer of the Supreme, and then you start your day. Now, things of course have changed, but if we can bring it back in our daily routine, I think it would be greatly helpful. At least I believe that it has been extremely helpful in my life. So, this is another ritual of your daily routine. Then there are rituals which are associated with our life in different ways. Like we do pilgrimage, Char Dham ki yatra, or any pilgrimage. Now that becomes an objective in the life that okay, we will perform these pilgrimage in our lifetime. Like for example, the story of Shravan Kumar. His parents desired to have the pilgrimage, and he took, since there were no other means and they were blind, they were not in a position, very old, they were not in a position to walk. So he took them on their shoulders and performed that ritual. Now, that is also a part of a mission in the life that we have to do this. Then there's another ritual. Some people do what we call Ganga Snan, that okay, once in 2 years or 5 years, I should go and take, you know, bath in the Ganges to purify myself. So these are another form of rituals. There may be many other rituals, and these rituals are actually different in every part of our country. Even within one state of India, these rituals will vary from place to place. Like this ritual of Kavadiya, bringing water from the Ganges or Haridwar, and then, you know, with all their what we call Shraddha, they go to their own temple, Shiva temple, and then they, you know, mm, put that water in the service of the Supreme, the Shiva. Now that's a very, it's a ritual, it's a tapasya. Similarly, some people do fasting, like Navratra, 9 day fasting. Some people do 2 days of fasting in a week, 1 day of fasting in a week. Some people observe Gyaras, that is 11th day as per the moon cycle. Then there are rituals at the time of death, 12, 13 days of rituals, that the soul which has passed this body and gone to the other world is staged in peace and without any disturbance. So those are other rituals. So there's a paraphernalia of rituals which are associated with Hindu traditions, Hindu culture, Hindu civilization. Now, one importance of these rituals is very simple, that is to manifest the Supreme in a particular form, like Devi Puja. Now you manifest your Supreme in the form of a Devi, or Ganesh Puja, you manifest the supreme in the form of Ganesh, and then you perform a ritual. That is one part. So that is that you believe that there is a supreme force which is behind this universe, and that force should be manifested for the benefit of the humanity from time to time, to remind them that that force is the governing force behind this universe. So that is one fundamental principle behind these rituals. The second fundamental principle behind these rituals is to make the younger generation aware about these fundamental concepts, these fundamental, uh, you know, traditions which have been in our country for ages are passed on to the younger generation through these rituals. Younger generation is not in a position to understand the spirituality at young age, because spirituality comes only after 40, 45 years of age. And after understanding this world and passing through all the pains and pleasure of this world, you understand spirituality. But a young child will understand these rituals better. You take him to the temple, you perform puja, you take him to a festivity, you perform puja at the festival, you explain him the story of Hiranyakashyap, you explain him the story of Holika or Ramayana, or the story of, for example, Ravana and Rama. All those, these are part of passing on our traditions to the next generation. So that the second important part, why we observe rituals. The third important part of rituals is greatly scientific. It is actually embedded in the deepest science we can imagine. For example, we do fasting. That's also a ritual. Now that fasting is rooted in purification of body and mind both, cleansing of both body and mind, that you observe a period of austerity. During that period, you keep your mind calm and quiet, you keep your body clean and neat, so that, your rest of the period of the year is not in turmoil, it is peaceful, it is something which is absolutely, pleasant and worth living. So that is one part. Now there are science behind most of the rituals we observe. While we, for example, we have the birth rituals of a child. Now that is based on a science we called it Jyotish, that how the child was born, what are its sanskars, what is likely future of the child, what kind of tendencies he will take, what kind of problems he will face, what kind of achievements he will have in the life. So these are these used to be extremely scientific at once upon a time. But now we have lost that science, and it has become more of a superstition rather than science. Because the people who know the science are extremely few, very, very few. That science can be known only through great austerity and great hard work. But now people have become relaxed, and the life has become very, what you call seeking comforts everywhere. And therefore, we are not in a position to achieve that level of excellence which our ancestors did. And that is why some of those rituals uh, have lost their true meaning, because we have lost the true meaning of that civilizational aspect. Now, let's take some other rituals with science. Rituals, for example, associated with marriage. Now, this ritual is also in our Vedic literature. Why this ritual? This ritual is designed so that the people rise above animal tendencies, that they have one union, man and wife, one single union, so that the progeny coming out of their union has an identity, has a particular what you call genetic combination, and they are not astray. They do not go here and there. Now, if you have no what you call rigidity in marriage, then the progeny born out of it is not certain what kind of course it would take. The life will become more like an animal life. And that is happening in many parts of the world today when people have, I don't know how many relationships and marriages. Now that is more like the progeny is suffering. The progeny has no identity. When I was in the West Indies, in fact, I heard some ladies telling me that I have Mark from John, I have Sikha from Ramesh, I have this from that. Now, that is the kind of introduction they give for their children. Now, that means that progeny is not deeply rooted in anything, and that progeny becomes uprooted. Their knowledge base becomes very shallow. So, that is another reason why we have a union which should last for life, a union which is keeping our progeny in a stable state, giving them a direction, giving them certain values in life. Now, gradually, that is also losing its way. It is also associated with the family life where the grandchildren and the grandparents live together and they passed on their values. The experience of the grandparents were passed on to the younger generation. So that was another process in which these values were transferred from generation to generation. So there was a science behind this union of people or the marriage institution so that we have some stability in life. Now, today I know in fact, the younger generation in Western world is completely uprooted. Parents are not able to look after them. Even the children don't know how to introduce themselves. And as soon as they go to, they become 16, 17 or years of age, the children are left on their own. They have their own loan from the banks to pursue their studies and to pursue their further career. Now, their links with parents is completely diluted. It's practically a notional link. And there is no emotional bounding there at all. And that is why the young children do not look after their parents because they got those values in such a way that those are reflected in their own values later on. And the family life gets completely disrupted. Let's take some other examples of rituals which are scientific. Like we have, for example, at the time of birth, the mother and the child used to be kept isolated for about a month. There were certain rituals which used to be performed when they are open to visits. Before that, they were not open to visits. Now there was a science behind it that the children, the young child and the mother should be safe. They should not be exposed to variety of viruses, variety of external influences which can you know damage their physical and mental status in the very childhood. And that became very clear during the COVID time when we realized that a virus which is non-visible to anybody, which is not visible to anybody in any form, is able to invade the entire civilization and play havoc. I remember where thousands of aircrafts were dumped on the airports. They were nicely parked. The buses were parked in their places, the cars were parked in their places, and the humans were imprisoned in their own house. The one unknown invisible virus could play that much havoc with the entire human civilization. So This was the reason why our ancestors decided that the young born and the mother should be kept in isolation at least for a month so that they are not exposed to those dangers which can play havoc with their life in the very childhood. So this is another scientific reason of those rituals. Now I can talk about many, scientific reasons behind each ritual. Whatever we have, for example, Deepavali. Why do we have? Firstly, why do we have so many festivities? In other religions, there are not many festivities. India has maximum number of festivities, and it has a reason. The reason is that every coming festivity gives you hope and happiness. Like Dasara is coming, you start preparing for Dasara. You think, oh, Dasara will come. You feel happy. Start cleaning up your houses and all that, and start thinking in the direction that we should work for the victory of the good over evil. Then Diwali comes. Then you see we should celebrate. This is the time when the divine forces are coming to our houses. And we should celebrate with lamps. We should celebrate with, renovating the life. We should buy new clothing. We should have new utensils in the kitchen. And we should clean up the entire house. So there's a kind of enthusiasm. There's a kind of, what you call a motivation to continue with positivity. Similarly, when Holi comes, we have the same kind of hope and aspirations, or even of the festivals which are associated with crops. They also have the same that new crop comes and new hopes. It brings new hopes. It brings new colors to life. It's also like Basant Ritu when it comes because it renovates life. It brings new life, not only to humans but to all species of life. The trees start getting new leaves, the flowers get new flowers, the even the birds start singing more and often that time. So all this life comes to a new beginning, renovation of life starts, renewal of life starts. So all these festivities have their scientific reason, which is closely associated with each of these festivities. So the first thing is that we bring the invisible supreme power into a form by celebrating these rituals, whether it is a temple, whether it is a festivity, or in any other form. Then we pass on these traditions through rituals to our younger generation. Then, thirdly, we preserve our culture and civilizational values and explain their science, why this is observed. Explaining the science behind each of these rituals is extremely important to the new generation so that the science continues, so that the rationality is properly explained, which is missing today because we have lost part of that knowledge. Then there's another important reason that we continue with hope and aspirations. These rituals provide us hope and aspirations. They contain our distress, they contain our mental disturbance. They are very helpful in keeping our balance in life. In every civilization, I even know the Christianity. For example, they have three big festivals that is the Christmas, New Year, and Easter. Now, these festivities they look forward and it becomes a region for celebration. So the parents get together, family get together, and they do this. So this is a region which provides motivation, it provides hope, it provides aspirations, it provides positivity, and it provides what you call a region to celebrate life. So that is another important reason why we do keep these rituals. Then another important reason for keeping these rituals is that people try to forget and forgive the acrimony and animosities which accumulate during interpersonal relations with each other. This happens with each one of us. We create some kind of animosity, we create some kind of competition, we create some kind of hatred with each other over a period of time in our interpersonal relations. These festivities allow us to forgive and forget. We exchange gifts with each other. The same people whom we hate, we exchange gifts with them. Like Holi, for example, is considered greatly a festival where we forgive and forget. So is the festivity of Diwali, where we meet people, we, embrace each other, we exchange gifts, we exchange greetings. So this is another occasion where we reduce our what we call stress in the society. We reduce our hatred and generate positive, what you call waves or positivity in the entire human conduct. That is another reason. Even if you look at the modern times when economics is dominating, the economics is also helped by festivities. Now, today I was looking at the newspapers and last 1 week, full week. So many new advertisements, so many new schemes, so many new products. People want to buy a new house or a new car or a new apartment or a new watch or new clothing. So all those advertisements are coming. So it gives a great boost to the economy. It gives a boost to the artistic, talent of the people, the designing talent. Somebody designing new clothing, somebody is designing new jewelry, somebody is designing new watches, somebody is coming out with beautiful paintings, somebody is coming out with new music. And so all this, creativity in our human behavior, it becomes part of our festivity. In fact, the festivity promote that. Each festival promotes this kind of creativity, and that creativity ultimately plays an important role in the growth of economy of the country. And that is why India had one of the it is the largest economy in the world for almost 2000 years till 1720. It was partly because of these festivities, you know, created new arts. Like, how do you create a temple like Meenakshi? It's only because of dedication, because of the festivity, because of your total devotion to the Supreme, that you do thousands and thousands of, wonderful carvings, and those carvings form part of a temple. Now, some people spend their whole life making carvings of the Supreme in different postures. Some people do paintings in different postures. So, all these art and crafts, the human skills are developed because of these festive occasions. And these skills are ultimately, developing our economy. They are providing growth, they are providing higher income and more employment to the people. And also, some of the festivities are associated with our, crops, harvesting of the crops. When you harvest the crops, obviously you celebrate. So then it also helps us in bringing life closer to the earth. That, I remember when I was in Paris, there used to be an agricultural fair on Champs-Élysées in Paris. The purpose of that fair was to tell the children that the bread is not made in factories and milk is not produced in factories. There are cows which are giving the milk, and there is a farmer who is cultivating a crop which helps in making the bread. Otherwise, the modern generation living in cities don't even know about these facts. And therefore, we bring through these festivities, We bring people closer to the reality of life. That this is how the crops are done, this is how the milk is produced, and this is how we survive. So it brings us closer to the nature, and that means that we are also having respect for the nature. The ecological balance which we need to maintain is also part of our festivities. The festivities promote the harmony between man and nature so that we are not completely isolated and we do not destroy the nature. So this is another important ecological dimension, and ground realities is another aspect through which these rituals bring us closer to the nature. For example, we have in India the tradition of worshipping rivers. Why? Because the rivers should be preserved properly, the rivers should be worshipped. It is to that extent. Now we have lost those spirits. The rivers have become, chemical drains, which is very unfortunate. And that will become the cause of, destruction. And it already becoming a cause of destruction. It will continue to remain so. So even, for example, we worship certain trees and birds. That is also part of Hindu ritual. I remember my mother used to go and worship, do the puja of a what you call amla tree, for example, amla tree. Or there's a day designed for snakes to be worshipped. There's a day designed for birds to be worshipped. These are part of the rituals. So they bring the nature and the man together, closer to each other. That there's a harmony with each other. We survive because of each other. Nature is the one which nurtures us, and therefore we must maintain that harmony. In the West, there's a concept called exploitation of nature, that you exploit the nature for benefit of humanity. Now that concept is very destructive concept because you cannot destroy nature and exploit nature and preserve yourself. It's not possible. In longer run, if you exploit nature, you will destroy yourself. It's a self-destructive mechanism. And this is what we prevented through, making certain rituals in our society based on the science of ecology, based on the science of coexistence, based on the science of harmony of nature and man. Not only man, but all species of life. So that is another great aspect why we have rituals and why we, follow those rituals. Now, there are certain things which are very important, which we should also understand. That just keeping the rituals without knowing the science and spirit behind it is not good. Then it turns into a blind sort of exercise without knowing what we are doing. And then the others will call you superstitious. So we must understand the science behind it. We must understand the reason behind it. And we should be able to explain that reason to the posterity. Because today the people ask, why are we doing this? If they ask you, why do we celebrate the Sarah? Then we should be able to explain why do we do it in a proper scientific way with which you can associate the historical facts as well. Or why do we celebrate, Diwali, or why do we celebrate, for example, Guru Nanak Jayanti, or, Ram Navami, all that. So it gives you an occasion to explain. First, to understand why are we doing it, and secondly, to explain. So that region is extremely important to understand. Secondly, beyond a point, each one of us has to go beyond rituals. If you remain confined only to rituals, you cannot become spiritual. Like if a child keeps reading A Anarka and A Amka all the time, and using this Anar, Am, Kabutar all the time with those alphabets, he can never read a book. He can never make a sentence. Beyond a point, you have to do away with all those. And then you have to read without arm and without anar and without kabutar and without khargos. And that is what spirituality is. The ritual should lead us to understand the value of the Supreme, the power of the Supreme who is guiding every single unit in this big universe. We should be able to understand that. And once we understand that, once we reach that state, then rituals are not important for only for those people who have reached that state. Those who consider the entire humanity as one single entity, for them, rituals are not important. When they go to the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that whole universe is my own family, then the rituals lose their significance. For that kind of person, rituals are not important. So, rituals are important for 95, 99% of the people in this world, but 1% people who have gone beyond those rituals have attained unity with the Supreme. He has become a yogi. Then rituals are have no meaning in their life. That is why you will feel that the saints, they may or may not observe rituals. For them, rituals are not significant. Sometimes you will find behavior of some of the saints very erratic and irrational, because they have reached a state where for them rational and irrational have no meaning. Like black and white has no meaning, left and right has no meaning. Once you have understood that whole universe is one single entity. So all these meanings of duality, light and darkness, happiness and unhappiness, east and west, north and south, it is all lost once you have reached the true unity with the Supreme. If you have become the yogi, if you have become a saint, then all these things become irrelevant. Like a person who is flying in an aircraft, for him passing through the rigmarole of all passing through different streets in a city has no meaning, because he has gone beyond that. He has risen above that. So he can easily overpass them in one go. Similarly, a person who has risen to the level of the Supreme, who has become one with the Supreme, for him, rituals lose their significance and they must do so. If the rituals are still important, it means the person has not reached that point yet. But those steps are important. These are the steps which lead us to the spirituality, but we should not remain lost into those steps all the time. If we want to cross a city, we should not remain confined from rolling, running from one street to another and getting into the same rigmarole again and again. But you should cross that and go beyond. So, this is what spirituality is. And here I would like to explain the meaning of three words: Pandit, Swami, and Sant. Now, Pandit is a person who knows the rituals, who performs the rituals. He may not necessarily be beyond the rituals. He may not necessarily be following the spiritual path, but he knows the rituals. He makes you aware of the rituals. For example, a Pandit comes and performs puja in a temple. He comes and performs Diwali pujan or Holi pujan or marriage ceremony. These Pandits may not necessarily be spiritual, but they know the rituals which are to be performed. And they know these rituals through generations, and some of them through training and through the Shastraj. Then Swami is the person who is able to contain himself, who is controlling his own self, who is in control of his own self. He is not driven by outside world. He is driven by his own self. His sense organs are driven by him. His mind is driven by him. He is Swami. He is controlling himself. He is the ruler of his own puri, that is the purus, the body which we have. The body is actually, it's called purush in certain ways because it has a city. It's a pur, like Jaipur, Udaipur, Jodhpur. It has a pur which has millions of inhabitants, trillions perhaps. All those inhabitants are in this body. And that body is actually controlled by consciousness, which is the light. That is why it's called Purush. So Swami is the one who is realized that light inside and is able to exercise control over the self. And Sant is actually the final stage, or we can call it Samadhi, or you can call him Yogi, where he has become one with the Supreme. Now, the English word saint comes from Sant. It's a Sanskrit root that you have become absolutely shant. You have no what you call udveg inside yourself. No waves are going and coming inside you. You have become totally cool and calm and collected. That is shant. Nothing outside can create a wave inside you. That is what these things are. So the Sant are very few, Swamis are many more, and Pandits are many, many more. So these are also associated with our system in our rituals, and they perform rituals. Basically, Pandits do that. Then we should all become Swami slowly, slowly, and from Swami we should become Sant or Yogi. So this is the main purpose of all these rituals, and this is what we should do at one stage. We should rise above rituals and should become spiritual. And that is the point where we become one with the Supreme. We realize this, the supreme power which is ruling this universe, which is responsible for our birth, which is responsible for our sustenance, which is responsible for our death and then rebirth. So this is how the rituals play an important role, but at the same time, we must know the reason behind those rituals. We must be able to explain the science behind those rituals to the younger generation, and we should provide those sanskars so that the civilizational values continue indefinitely. Thank you very much.